In early childhood settings, we work with a diverse group of children and families. Additionally, let's be honest, there might be nothing more as personal as how we raise our own children. And yet, in today's society, we find most households relying on two incomes, which means that children are having to be cared for by other people than their biological parents. In our work with young children during so many sensitive periods for development and learning, we can do so much good and so much harm. We also know that the stronger the relationship is between us, the educator, and a child's family, the better the outcomes will be for the child. We have a level of intimacy with children, families, and other professionals that is both rewarding and challenging to manage. Thus, teaching ethical conduct and thinking is essential to any early childhood education college program. We have started down our own path of ethical learning beginning in Module 1, when the beginning of this PowerPoint was shared in the Module 1 study tools. There are two major theories of moral development. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory builds on Piaget's stage theory. He refers to systems of thought with 3 stages. When we look at these stages, we understand that individuals progress through stages that are characterized by different approaches to moral reasoning, which changes focus from individual to abstract principles. Kohlberg sees dilemmas in regards to people's rights. Kohlberg sees moral reasoning as rigid stages that one moves through. Carol Killigan's theory identifies gaps in Kohlberg's theory. She focuses on relationships and connections between individuals. Gilligan sees dilemmas in terms of balancing conflicting responsibilities. You must have context and information rather than just formal, abstract understanding. She thus believes that moral reasoning is fluid and a flexible process. Regardless of which theory you identify more with, rigid stages, where we progress through over time, age, and experience, or more of a fluid place of balancing responsibilities, regardless, there are common findings that we know to be true. 1. Individuals at different levels have different ideas about what is right and what is wrong. Progression through stages results from intellectual ability, increased maturity, and experience. Individuals at the same age may have very different moral capacities, and some adults will never progress beyond Kohlberg's second phase, which is conventional morality, where individuals resolve dilemmas by considering existing social rules and by finding solutions that maintain the status quo. No matter what, we know that moral development is not just about experience, but instead can be nurtured with self-reflection, education, and practice. Reading to you from Teaching the NAEYC Code of Ethical Conduct, we know that moral reasoning is an ongoing process that involves a sequence of qualitative changes in the way individuals think about moral issues. These changes occur when learners encounter challenging experiences and information does not fit into their existing worldview. Moral development can continue through adulthood when learners have experiences that challenge their thinking and they are engaged in systematic discussions and guided reflection, much like you will do in this class. Without such experiences, however, adults may never progress beyond lower levels of ethical reasoning. This points to the importance of focusing on the discussion of ethical issues in the professional development of early childhood educators to support their moral development. Training in ethics needs to give learners opportunities to analyze and resolve relevant ethical dilemmas that expose them to increasingly advanced levels of moral reasoning. One of those examples would be the birthday cake dilemma. The birthday cake focuses on what we do when a parent shows up with a birthday cake to a child care center. The child's parent is not fluent in English and has not yet formed a good relationship with the staff. She arrives at school on her daughter's birthday with a large, elaborately decorated cake to share with the child's class. The school has a no birthday cake policy. Opinion about the best course of action for the teacher facing this situation is sharply divided among early childhood educators. Quite a few educators, especially inexperienced ones in the pre-conventional personal stage of moral development, maintain adamantly the rule is the rule and that the teacher should gently and firmly tell the parent that the cake cannot be served. Are these individuals wrong? Not really. The rule is the rule, right? But there's not just one way to handle this situation. Next is the conventional morality maintaining norms stage. And those individuals feel that it's important to explain the health reasons for the policy to the parent and seek to find a way to communicate that the rule is good for everybody. Often, these educators would argue that there's a way to ethically finesse, find a way to meet the needs of everyone involved without having to make a difficult decision. You might try and find ways to acknowledge the mother's contribution by limiting the amount of cake consumed. You might invite families to join at the park after school to have the cake. All of this focuses on relationships and the concept of caring, which tend to be strong characteristics of early childhood educators. Is this wrong? No. The post-conventional morality, the principled response in this situation, is to prioritize the conflicting obligations to favor preserving a good relationship with the parent above all. Responsibility to follow all policies to the letter. Teachers at this stage think the most ethical response is to warmly thank the mother for wanting to celebrate her child's special day and tell her we'll sing happy birthday and share the cake at lunch. Please stay and join us. They also realize that the policy should be examined, and if it is to stay in place, it needs to be communicated more effectively to the families. When you understand that this range of responses is a function of the teacher's stages of moral development, you can help examine your own response, and you can think about alternatives to your response. It is possible that over time and working with other professionals with age and maturity and education and professional experience, that you can engage in complex thinking that characterizes the post-conventional stage of ethical thinking. Effective adult educators, such as myself, have to learn characteristics of the learner, you, my student. It is my job to help you think about where you are in your own moral and ethical development and how to grow to be more encompassing. To be frank, I would adhere more to the Gilligan style of ethical reasoning and thinking. It's interesting to me that the authors of this book discuss Gilligan and present the idea that as a woman and a mother, in this more feminine characteristic of balance is what is focused upon in her own research. And I think we have to be careful of stereotypes here, but it is something perhaps to acknowledge. Before we can work through ethical situations in this class, we first have to come to better understanding of ourselves. And so we are walking through personal reflection and analysis. We must understand ourselves before we can make sound professional ethical decisions. We are people. We bring attributes, values, morality, and ethics to our work. Attributes. We discussed these in Module 1 when you posted to the discussion board forum. Attributes are an inherent part of us. They reflect our personal characteristics, our gut reactions, our disposition. Personal values guide what we find is desirable or worthwhile. We focused on these in Module 2. And now, in Module 3, we're going to shift and start thinking about our own morality and ethics outside of the professional setting. When we looked in Module 2 at our sources of values, we spent some time thinking about how we perceive the importance of many different topics: education, beauty, religion, competence, doing good, excitement and stimulation, family, financial well-being, friendship, happiness, honesty, health, intellectual curiosity, meaningful work, the natural environment, order, and peace. If you have a child that comes to the center dirty or with uncombed hair, and this is a strong value you have of beauty or cleanliness, you will quickly find yourself uncomfortable with the situation. You might even grow angry with the family for allowing a child to come in to the school in such a state. However, what if you talk with the family and find that the child is playing outside and helping with the farm chores before coming each morning? The family values hard work, the family work, and doing good. The conflict, or what you might perceive as a problem, is probably altered with this careful reflection. We have to continually remind ourselves that values are not wrong or right. What we are personally, passionately attached to is not necessarily what some of our colleagues or families which we work with find to be desirable or worthwhile. In this module, you are asked to rate 13 statements applicable to work with young children. Again, there are no right or wrong answers, but instead we are simply gauging and better understanding our individual values and how they impact our work. I look forward to reading your reflections at the end of Module 3.